99X, it's Barnes and Leslie. Sean Raviv is here. He's got the new podcast, Noble, which is about the big crematory disaster that happened in '02 up in Noble, Georgia, where more than 300 bodies were found on this property. Caution, audio ahead. If death or decay, things like that trigger you, just want to give you a warning. This is definitely adult audiences. Here's a little excerpt from the podcast, Noble.
But the most disturbing discovery on that second day has got to be the one inside the Butler building. They start to smell something.
I mean, there was just this sickening odor. I mean, just one that makes you step back and go, ooh. Well, I stepped away and I'm about to throw up.
Greg walks around the building.
There were about 6 or 7 vaults, metal vaults in there.
The vaults are shaped like oversized caskets, but much heavier and made of concrete. They're put in the ground at a cemetery to protect a casket from rainwater. Greg sees half a dozen of these in the Butler building, sitting upside down on their rounded tops.
So we're sitting there, and when I got close to it, I mean, the odor was just, like I said, just sickening. Oh, gosh, there's bodies in there. We popped that thing open, and good Lord, we cleared that building. The vault is maybe, say, 7 feet long, and it's maybe 36 inches deep. That was full of human bodies that were rotting, decomposing.
Piled on top of each other?
Yes, just piled on top of each other.
This is that Tri-State Crematorium story from 2002. The podcast, by the way, is called Noble.
Yeah, Sean, you've done an excellent job. We're talking to Sean Raviv. I do want to ask you, when you were, in the city and you were talking to people, do you ever get to the bottom of the story of who was responsible for all of this?
I think we get pretty deep into it. The last 2 episodes haven't come out yet, and you'll sort of see more of that in those last 2 episodes. But yeah, that was what we were going for, yeah.
But when you say who was behind it, I mean, Ray Brent Marsh, that you're saying beyond him?
I'm just saying, why and who was he and what made him do this?
Yeah, he's psychopath. He's out of jail now. The thing it's on an emotional level, it goes so deep, because here's a guy, he inherited this business from his dad, who became ill, right?
Yes, correct.
And so as he goes on, he's giving people urns or whatever you give it to them of cement dust instead of their families, remains, which just alone right there, that's just so, the moral depths that this guy went to are insane beyond the physical things that he did. But originally when the person tipped off whoever, didn't they first say, well, this is not a legal thing, this is just a regulatory thing?
Yeah, that's what the lawyers were arguing on the Marsh's side.
How could they even begin to think that there was no legal implication or no crime committed when you have over 300 bodies literally strewn around the back area of this place?
Yeah, I think it's a complicated issue. Georgia law at the time wasn't really prepared for something like this. It was just unprecedented. No one had ever seen a crime like this. And even like the investigators didn't really know exactly how to charge Brent Marsh. Like, they didn't know what crime he had committed at first. It took them a while to negotiate that and figure it out.
I wonder if any new laws have been put in place since.
Yeah, there have been some new laws put into place. I don't have them memorized, but yeah. It definitely changed things in the funeral industry.
What was the most shocking thing you learned while reporting this podcast, while going to this community and just kind of dropping yourself in there and trying to meet all these players?
There was a lot of shocking things. Obviously, the scale of it was very shocking, the number of bodies found and the state of them. But I think more so than that I was shocked about how much sympathy and empathy I had for all the people involved, including the Marsh family themselves. I wouldn't actually characterize Brent Marsh as a psychopath.
No?
He's, as far as I have learned, he seemed like a pretty normal guy, and everybody liked him.
How can you be normal and think, I'll just throw the bodies out in the back? Is he a smart guy?
He seems like a very intelligent guy, yeah.
Really?
Yep.
So if you were smart and you thought you were trying to get something over on people, I don't think you would be so reckless.
Definitely no moral code.
No. Yeah, no moral code. That's visible.
Wow.
Yeah, I think even that, I would say, is questionable, and a lot of people have different opinions on that up in Noble. I would call it one of the shocking things is how complex it was, even though it seemed like a very simple open and shut case. And I think by the end of the podcast, the listeners will sort of see the same.
Sean, do you speak with any of the victims' families?
Yeah, there are a few family members in the podcast, and they play like an absolutely essential role in the story. Just learning about the human beings who had been left on that property, I think made this story really whole.
What was it like driving in to Noble, Georgia, and like your first time? That had to give you just kind of a weird feeling.
It absolutely did. The first time I ever drove there, I was by myself. It was before I'd even sort of sold the idea of the podcast to a podcasting company. And I was just a little nervous. I was nervous about being at this place I'd read about, where I knew like hundreds of bodies were. And I was just, I don't know, a few dozen feet away from there, driving on the road. But by the end of my reporting, I felt pretty comfortable there. I knew a lot of people in the area, and I just felt like it was a place that I could understand why people wanted to live there, in and around Noble.
Wow. Yeah, I have this thing for true crime fascination where I will, if I'm on a road trip and I know of a crime that I've learned on Dateline or something, I will map it out, exit, go to it, park out front, look at it, soak it in. This one, though, seems like exponentially like just Creepsterville. You're
not going, Barnes?
Yeah, I mean, getting near that, there's got to be all kinds of paranormal and ghost stuff going on in the woods there. Well, we've purposely stayed away from a lot of the specific details because obviously we want you to check out his podcast. I've been listening. You're doing a great job with it, so I highly recommend checking out Noble. You can get it wherever you get your podcasts. Sean, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you both.
Everywhere you looked, there was just bodies, just human bodies.
In the winter of 2002, the most mind-blowing crime you've never heard of happened in the least likely of places.
We all know the story. Well-respected people in a small community, and boy, that's a real small community.
More than 300 human bodies were found in a tiny town called Noble.
I mean, guys, this is like a horror movie. I was like, my God, there's skeletons everywhere.
There was just this sickening odor. This was just overwhelming.
It all starts when a delivery man stumbles upon a dead body on a remote property. Over the next few days, the police find bodies almost everywhere they look. Most of them have been there for years.
The bodies were dumped in woods and storage sheds outside the crematory. Residents of the town of Noble are in shock tonight.
What follows is one of the biggest and most expensive investigations in the history of the American South. And at the center of it all, one mysterious man.
I know why it happened, when it happened. I know exactly where all the bodies were. I know exactly what he did. I know everything that he did, and I know the reasons why.
The Morning X with Barnes and Leslie, 99X.